It is pronounced Morosi, John Morosi. He's the baseball insider, MLB.com columnist. Good morning, John. How are you?
Daniele, buongiorno, come stai? È un grande piacere di parlare con lei.
Let's do the whole interview in Italian, John.
Okay, va bene, tutto va bene.
All right, help me in any language. Bryce Harper is going to be paid a lot of money here, but are the Dodgers now the front runner?
That's a great question, Dan, and I believe if the answer is not yes yet, it is inching in that direction. I'm a believer that if Harper truly wanted to sign with the Phillies, he would have done so by now. And that's been said, and I think it's very, very true. The Dodgers, one of the big things that's happened in baseball this week, Dan, is the fact that Nolan Arenado, who was high on the Dodgers list for next offseason, has signed a mega-dollar extension to stay in Colorado. So now that the Dodgers cannot chase Arenado next winter, perhaps there's a bit more money in the budget for this winter, which has now, of course, become this spring, and Harper becoming more and more plausible, I think, for them. And I was told, Dan, yesterday that if the Dodgers just get close, now we think the Phillies, I don't have this confirmed, but I think they're probably somewhere in that range of 10 years and $300 million plus. If the Dodgers get close, and again, close, what's $50 million or so among friends here, but if they get close, I think the chances are pretty good that Harper would sign with the Dodgers even if they are not the biggest offer.
But can you do something that seems a little more financially plausible or smart, or there's some fiscal sanity involved in this, like a 5 or 6 year deal where Harper gets more money per season, therefore Scott Boris's agent can hold his head high and say, see what I do for my clients.
Exactly. And I think that there's been this back and forth about how willing Harper is to take less money in fewer years to sign on the West Coast, which we believe is his preference. I think if you go $35 million a year, and again, I'm spending somebody else's money here, but if I look at it this way, $35 million a year times 5 years, times 6 years, then at least Scott Boras can come back and say, I got my client the biggest per-year deal in baseball history. Right now, the per-year record is about $34 million signed by Zach Greinke with the Diamondbacks. And if you get to 35, then you set a new standard. Maybe you get an opt-out early in the deal, so that way Scott can say, hey, I've got my guy. He's got the best per-year deal ever in baseball history. He also has the early opt-out to test the market again if he wants to, and he goes to the team that I believe right now, Dan, that he wants to go to. He, of course, is from Las Vegas, so L.A. is something of a hometown team, as close as you could probably get being from Las Vegas. He would have spring training in Arizona, again, close to his home in Vegas. And a bit to the earlier discussion this hour, Dan, he is a Lakers fan. Now, I'm not going to say that your favorite basketball team is going to guide where you're going to sign to play baseball for the next 5, 10 years of your life, but he is used to the L.A. sports scene. He is that has been his team since childhood. And while I don't think that's the number one factor here by any stretch of the imagination, it's probably somewhere on the list from a standpoint of being very, very comfortable with the L.A. sports culture.
Well, why doesn't Magic Johnson, in his role with the Dodgers, just say to LeBron, hey, would you place a call to Bryce Harper?
It's a great question. I would expect that they've already thought of that. Now, I don't have it confirmed that it's happened, but wouldn't that be a nice bit of recruiting here? LeBron, very much used to what it's like to be a nationally courted free agent. I would actually think if the Dodgers want to bring in LeBron as the closer here, I think that's actually probably one of the best ideas I've heard in this somewhat meandering and really unprecedented offseason schedule here for MLB.
If you could have Aaron Judge for the next 6 years or Bryce Harper for the next 6 years, same price.
I would go with. It's a great question. They're basically the same age, which tells you a lot about the different scale you've got with coming out of a high school player, and actually even earlier than that for Bryce, because he went to that 17-year-old draft year for him, a very unique schedule for him. I would say I would go with Judge. I just think that the power is a bit more consistent right now, but there's a lot to be said for Harper, too. Both Harper and Judge, tremendous from a marketability standpoint. That's a great question. I would give the slight edge to Judge, but it is very, very close.
What if I threw Mookie Betts in there?
I'm a huge Mookie Betts fan. I voted for him for the MVP this past year. I think best all-around players in the game. I think Mookie, for what he does, on the bases and defensively, I would put Mookie Betts ahead of both Harper and Judge in terms of on the field. And Mookie's a phenomenal story off the field as well. Just does all the right things in the community. I think Mookie Betts, I would say right now, I would take Mookie Betts over either Judge or Harper.
Mookie or Mike Trout?
I still think that overall the best player in the game is Trout.
Okay.
And so I think right now I'd have to give the edge to Trout. His numbers are so historically great over time that I think he gets the nod. I think we all want to see Trout have success and play in the playoffs. He has played 3 playoff games in his entire career, and he is still looking for his first playoff win. And when you look at what made Derek Jeter an icon in the previous generation, among many things, it was that he played for the Yankees and that he was on our television sets every October winning. And Trout has not done that yet. Mookie Betts has done this now. He has won the MVP and he's won the World Series. So I think that I would still say Trout deserves that status as the best all-around player in the game. But Mookie is right there. And I voted for Mookie as my MVP last year because I believe he made the biggest impact for that team, for the Boston Red Sox. And I think what Mookie does on the field, off the field, think about what he did during the World Series last year, bringing food to the homeless during the course of the World Series after a game, after a World Series game. He just has such great presence of mind for what he means to the sport and to our country. I think Mookie Betts is a phenomenal person for our entire sports landscape here in the States right now.
I still can't help, and one of my guys, one of the Danettes, McLovin, is a Phillies fan, and I kept saying to him, I'm not hearing that Bryce Harper likes Philadelphia. He loves Philadelphia's offer. He just doesn't want to play in Philadelphia. Is that, because Scott Boras is trying to drum up any interest he can. Is that what happened here, that the Phillies gave them an offer that they're having a hard time refusing?
Well, it's a great point, and I do think, and Bryce Harper has not told me this directly, but if you look at the landscape and the way the offseason has played out, I agree with that line of thinking. I want to be careful here and make this point. I think part of the reason has nothing to do with the Phillies themselves or even the city. But let's think about this. Let's take a step back. If he signs with the Phillies and he plays in the National League East for a different team, every time he goes to D.C., he'll probably be booed. He'll be booed in Atlanta, which has always booed him. He'll be booed in New York, which has always booed him. And if he struggles in Philly, he'll be booed in Philly too. That's a lot of boos. That's a lot of boos for your life, Dan, for the entire season, for the next 10 years. You want to sign up to be booed at minimum. You're going to get booed on the road no matter what. And you might get booed at home if things don't go the right way. Whereas if you go and play in L.A. or even San Francisco, which has courted him, it's a different coast, different division, closer to home, spring training closer to home. And if you go back to D.C., I believe he'll be received fundamentally differently, Dan, if he goes to D.C. wearing a Giants uniform or a Dodgers uniform as compared to their nearest in-division geographic rival, right to the north. That would be it'd be difficult for him, I think, to still be viewed in the same favorable light by D.C. sports fans if he's got the Phillies jersey on than if he's wearing the Dodgers uniform or the Giants.
Yeah, you're making almost $40 million a year. Boo-hoo is what I would say with something like that. John, enjoy spring training. Great to read your stuff, and thanks for joining us again.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks for indulging my brief Italian. I didn't trust my Italian enough to carry the rest of the segment, but thanks for indulging that little bit.
All right, John Morosi.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.